trade policy. 3. Linkages. The best meta-analysis confirms that GIs boost interregional ties broadly, but develops at L22. Empirical results in the effects of GIs on predicting analysis to verify the effect of it's positive, even if the foci that optimism is confirmed that the GIs represent the tool for internationalism, linkages, and entrepreneurship are needed at the local level. Interest increase due to the effort of the EU to have its products. Advantage 2 is GIs. Granting presumption of non-genericness makes trademarks functionally akin to GIs. Nation 11. The U.S. should modify its GI protection scheme. There's no need to remodel because the U.S. trademark law is already well equipped. GIs are presumption of non-genericness only when they're registered as a certification marks or collective marks. The U.S. should grant presumption to all GIs that are overseen by self-regulating umbrella organizations. Incentivize the creation and traditional trademarks not have quality control. GIs guarantee standards. Law should incentivize the GI holders to address organizations. The presumption would provide a benefit and an incentive result in more GIs. Complete overhaul causes chaos for U.S. consumers. Thirds the needle. Nation 11. Extension would create chaos and prevent unmanageable terms are so ingrained that the extension would require massive overhaul. The effects are far-reaching. Consumers are unable to recognize the products. The producers spend huge amounts of renaming and remarketing. Extension would follow in every sector. There would be some added cost to consumer anxiety. GIs are vital to agriculture and rural development. Yen 24. The GI system also plays a role in rural development, raising farmer incomes, boosting agricultural value, maintaining and ag supply chains, leveraging nationally level and econometrics. This study demonstrates the impact of GIs in agricultural rural growth. GIs significantly enhance the per capita disposable income of farmers. GIs can mitigate the income disparities between urban and rural areas. Effects boost agricultural output given limited coverage. The true uplift from GIs may be even greater. Polarization is an impact filter and prevents war. Bomb and Potter 2019. Tribal politics mean that followers are unlikely to leave their opposition to expect to have no access to public and polarized ecosystem most willing to lean a bit. Public will hear polarized information and discourse of effects on rally around the flag effect. It tends to support and opposition despite in a crisis, a highly polarized environment, more incentive to engage in destructive behavior. Rural inequality alone causes extremism with nuclear civil war. Pinkerton. 3. Historically, so bureaucratic reviews reverse the war. The next American Revolution could be waged proliferating weapons. About the time American U persons resist the U.S. government, destructive power could kill everyone. Prospects for human survival strike accordingly. What could a terrorist alliance come up with? The universal law will meet Murphy's law. Agricultural public goods are failing now after revitalization of the current system guarantees disease, biodiversity crops, and fertilizer overuse. Caron Auto 23. The food systems need to promote transformation, poor quality diets contributing to disease. Current system failed to process food to public health, socioeconomic and environmental factors to change the consumer's preference. Groups have limited because of geographical situation. Groups have limited access. Transforming food systems is key and radical drawbacks to the enable sustainability. Existing food systems face many threats. Unreasonable use of natural resources responsible for the loss of biodiversity and synthetic inputs are fertilization and loss of specific hampered food, insert species loss. We're looking into agriculture intensification, pesticide use, destruction of habitats, changes in land food. Is responsible for GHG and major for climate change, environmental pressures, and intensity. Midwest collapse causes global food shortages, generates global instability and conflict. Hosier 22. Midwest supply chain supply. Yeah.
You're reading the wrong one, I see. I think.
I'm reading the one that says loss of BF.
Hold up. Dude, that's not. I think that's DDs.
It says BF.
Alright, just read it.
Okay.
Just an F.
Midwest collapse causes global food shortages, generates global instability and conflict. Hosier 22. Midwest supply of the world's corn and soy is adapt to extreme heat, are critically important to global food supply. Food heat waves would aggravate social weak points and create instabilities on a global scale. Food insecurity causes nuclear war. COVID-19. Long history of food and war and regions face a high risk of conflict. The disputes can escalate and reverberate into food prices, refugees, involvement of major powers, which national war, magnify population, climate change, and resources in the megacities. U.S. large food export and industry is disproportionate effect of production domino effect worldwide. Refugees. Domino consequences lead to nuclear exchange. 2 billion people would starve in the government. Disintegrate remnants and ruin around warlords. Panic is helping more governments and igniting conflict. Pandemics cause extinction. Bombs 23. Interaction cause pathogens to jump to humans. There's zoonosis may be large now because of more points of contact deep short evidence with extinction. Pandemics are causing disruptions to food security, neurological harm, resulting in insufficient cognitive fitness to maintain failure of engineering culture temperatures, rapidly rise sensation, resulting in a catastrophe. Biodiversity collapse causes extinction. Tomorrow. 23. Planet animal species are essential life support system. Biodiversity acting as a building block of life of Earth. Myriad of species creating inclusive system. There would be no food to eat, no air, no water. Humans would not non-existent. Hospitals or hotspots are vital for human survival. Fertilizer overuse drives extinction. Creates 22. Nutrient pollution is a marine problem. Runoff carries excess fertilizer into large booms as decomposition consumes all the leading hypoxic conditions that make our ocean uninhabitable. The number of dead zones has doubled every decade. Our future depends on the ocean to dampen emissions, provide whole oxygen, reducing the thresholds to lower the chances of the planet cross thresholds, reducing pollution in the U.S. have by some communities. Time to figure out solutions. GIs are key to sustainable food, environment, positive externalities, spill over to ensure public goods. Garashi. At 23. Sustainability is a positive externalities, spill over into PGs. SCGs are the tied to the agri-food system with fulfilled through responsible behavior while producing new food products. Contribution of GIs to SCGs include quality, environmental, cultural, and social aspects. GI products boost the sustainability of the value chain, territory, influence the PGG contribution, externality, sales, and quality, competition, reputation, marketing, and for reputation to produce PGs. GIs are necessary to equal distribution of benefits of public goods. Only the after regulation solves. So, growing 21. GIs affect public goods in many ways, but the public territorial system is related to use of local resources, preserve habitats. If GIs ceases the public goods, it threatens to derive from local stakeholders. This can put actors in negative generalities, creates effective through the noise, has the effect of preserving legal regulation, limit the free riding. Public goods solve extinction. Jonan. Instrument 24. Disaster education, health, foreign policy, science, influence, existential risk reduction. Where they require public goods investing in all to be an all-purpose good. We improve conditions for taking whatever experts may come our way. Trust is important for effective public goods. It's important to coordinate long-term trajectories to respond to key driver nuclear war, virus, miscellaneous, and AI and cyber weapons. Potential escalation. I'm sending it out right now because.
Is it the same one that yoga?
No, it's like completely different.
Okay.
It's not completely different.
I think there's like a concept different.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I was wondering if I was like tweaking a little bit. That's not. I think you just asked.
Also, the doc I got was like sent 34 minutes ago. That was the one.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
one I thought he was gonna read.
Okay.
That's my bad. I didn't realize.
Well, we'll wait for.
Okay, sorry about that. It's
Yeah, just go.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. How does the plan ensure farmers use sustainable agriculture?
I guess like what do you mean by sustainable?
Like you
agriculture?
said that we create sustainable agriculture. Where has the 1AC on evidence that farmers will use it?
Yeah, we think that the plan would benefit farmers, most notably farmers that are investing in organic agriculture, more smaller farms that are less concentrated, and those farms tend to be more organic and use more sustainable practices. They avoid things like overusing fertilizer use and pesticide use, and they
Okay.
transition more towards things
What
like.
piece of evidence says they would stop overusing fertilizer post-plan?
Well, we're not saying that there's overuse happening right now. We're just saying that the plan allows them to export and sell more homegrown products, less product, like things like crop yields and increasing the production of corn for mass
Okay.
concentrated farms would decrease because you can functionally get a trademark for a product that you have originated from your own sort of
Okay.
radius based on like
But
geographic.
where have you read evidence that farmers will do that or they want to do that? Like which card says that they will do it?
I think the yin card talks about why GIs would naturally be good for rural development. It's in the context of small farms, i.e., it's saying that these the way the GI works is that you cannot just get like a potato, for example, trademarked. It needs to be akin and unique to the geographical location. So farmers would be more incentivized to grow things that can only exist within that geographical location, get trademarks for those type of things.
Okay.
And that's more organic agriculture rather than just like importing corn and growing it and then selling it for a huge subsidy.
Okay, the trade impact, your evidence says, or your Trump dumps evidence, your evidence says last term Trump did not dump EU relations. How is that predictive of status quo tariffs?
I think it prices in previous empirics and says that Trump has cared about EU and trade in the past, and he will work to allow it to happen regardless of if
Okay.
tariffs are happening.
How is that predictive of like the tariffs that just happened on like every country in the world, including the EU?
Well, sure. I think the fact that it's from early January prices in the expectation of tariffs and says in previous regimes Trump was resilient. There's no reason for him to change that stance, and nothing has really happened to generate a reason for him to like kill trade relations with the
Okay.
European Union.
The second advantage, how does sequestering CO2 solve
Because-
all warming?
Yeah. What's up
How does sequestering CO2 solve all warming?
on the second advantage?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we're saying it solves for like all warming. We're just saying it prevents it from getting to the threshold of extinction.
Okay, what's that threshold?
I mean, there's not like a specific exact bright line, like we're all fine and then we hit this degree and we die. It's just that it counters warming enough for us to adapt in time.
Okay, actor of the plan.
The United States federal government.
Okay, which branch?
What's normal means, Ankit?
Normal means it's Congress.
Okay.
Like, counterplans can't.
Yeah. Okay. The public goods stuff. Your evidence says that all public goods, i.e., abolishing capitalism, would solve extinction. How does the plan do this?
I think that's a
I don't think it
mischaracterization of
says
the
abolishing
evidence.
capitalism.
Okay.
Order is 10, then 1, 2, and it's it.
Ten and two, case in order. Okay.
Or it's not.
Or, 9, then 1, 2.
You guys don't care if we use the stand, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Just
fine.
like
Okay.
don't try not to raise it because it's kind of broken. So if you
Sure.
raise it, it might fall.
Yeah, I'll keep it at this level. One sec. Battery popped up.
I just got it.
Give me a second to download it. Right now, I'm good now.
Alright, Riley?
Yeah.
Alright. First off, T substance it means throughout and or must be read and all elements must be satisfied. Protection of intellectual property means all rights and forms of intellectual property of its of belonging to it of indicate the aggregate or whole of significantly define whether occupied a position relative to all. That's WP 8, Goldstein 14, the House 88, Oxford English Dictionary 14, and CGS 78, and Higginbottom 7. Vote neg limits protections for singular sectors are infinite and ground tiny aspect DA links and render counterbalance uncompetitive. Next off. Reflexive fMRI proves that the one sees a simulated death game produces crude and immediate cognitive aggression. Rejection is a gateway to Vendic. 11 participants were never in real danger. Immediate reaction to symbolic death game operate crude. Research repeatedly shown several signs of death act quickly. Symbolic and physical extinction threats induce angst and desire to strengthen one's own good. Symbolic survival elicits similar response to actual threat. Research shown symbolic survival threat sends powerful. Next off. The one see simulation distance politics causes desensitization, compassion fatigue for Indian debaters. Rejection is a gateway to Raj. 23 media shapes reality simulation through repetition, powerful descriptive narratives, representation, foreign issues, India, Western gay spectacles, individuals, agent with responsibility, emotional mass market, viewing together from a distance, a Western approach, gaze towards disaster, one-dimensional view of high power positions, institutional positions, a detriment of alternative viewpoints, victimization, rendered effective strategy, situation, exploited for value, marginalized, stripped of dignity, sacrificed for value, and the false sense of hope, indication of guilt, compassion, fatigue, seems to have an impact seen so many times before as a centralized suffering undermines subjectivity by creating environment where suffering is desensitized, loss of sensitivity, and empathy. Next off. Topical affirmatives must increase the penalties of violations of intellectual property. Strengthen implies initiatives that have already begun. Morris 19. Strengthen rather than create initiatives can only develop on something that's already rather than build something new. Protection means enforcement of exclusive economic rights. Dogma 14. Protection of intellectual property when enforcing private rights to creation to prevent others from using it. That requires damages or an injunction. Benham 21. Seeking enforcement may seek damages or an injunction. Violation. They don't voting for limits, something modifying and granting IP protections are untenable areas on top of small modifications, IP administration, eligibility, and holdings. 6 off. When it sees misuse of three-tier process, they violate. Read Blinkley 28.3. The other one, three-tier personal experience, organic, intellectual, expert research, expertise, expert thoughts, personal experience offered for a view of consequences. Vote neg, interpassivity, researching intellectual property stands through truth, interest, distancing, which precludes politics rooted in the community of those affected. Next off. Intellectual property violates the laws of freedom of Russia. 22. A property I'm so connected to others use, so could wrong me. No one is allowed to have possession problematic of individuals declaring the right to objects that goes beyond freedom, violate the universality of external right, and unilaterally limiting freedom. And utility causes bullying, prefer Kantian ethics. 17. Imagine there's a kid being teased, all of whom are taking great pleasure. The happiness of teasers always suffering mad many spectators until it does clearly this is false. Next off. United States federal government should grant a presumption of non-genericness to trademarks registered as geographic indications overseen by self-regulating and umbrella organizations. Placing the before the United States is a mundane citation that implicitly condones geopolitical unity and psychically primes us towards aggression. Thrift 2K geopolitical forces, little details, mundane citations, phrases such as the PM, the nation, assumes national borders and homeland, unconscious aggression, geopolitical reasoning, us not like them. Next off. The United States federal government ought to enter prior good faith and binding negotiated rulemaking, including advocacy for over whether the United States federal government ought to grant presumption of non-genericness to trademarks registered as geographical indications overseen by self-regulating umbrella organizations. The counterline competes and solves. Kerwin 19. Regular influential negotiations have deadlines. Fearful of information leads to higher quality results. Less time perceived legitimacy. Increase. As a money enforcement, participants comply with rule voluntarily. Most rigorous study for the info alert, influence, efficiency, cost, compliance, legality, quality, and the benefits, experience, negotiated rulemaking, higher ratings. A study is most compelling evidence to date best. Rogue AI, arms racing, and bioweapons are each essential stakeholder consultation. Is the only hope for mitigation. Barber 23. AI, nuclear risk, ecosystem collapse, pandemics by accident or otherwise represent existential threat. Resolutions contingent upon collective action. Risk compounds on sustainable levels. Whole society should be guiding framework. Ability isn't limited to directives. Academia, business, society, stakeholders establishing action and unified front gives coherence to international efforts to coordinate an incremental approach better than scattergun. Next off. Tax codes passed now. A report for 22. Wesson predicts tax codes to pass. Policymakers gathered negotiating a deal. The House could pass it legislation by Memorial Day. Entire bill finalized by July. I'm optimistic Trump has been pushing. IP reform requires enormous PC. Han 5. Legislators and enormous commitment to peace is required to reach consensus on IP, non-magnets of political sentiment more likely to be viewed as esoteric. One policy could affect the commercial space tax cuts. Tax cuts are key to space colonization. Whittington, 24. One policy could affect the commercial sector. Tax cuts. Commercial space companies will not have any to build rocket ships or lunar landers, and also depends on the commercial space sector. Smaller launch companies lower the cost of launching into Earth orbit, can institute tax increase of vigorous, well-funded space efforts powered by commercial space companies cannot have both. Multiplanetary colonization prevents extinction. Rudder, 21. Becoming multiplanetary species can protect a human race. A 1 in 6 chance of going extinct this century. Long-tail risks are accidental asteroids, volcanic eruptions, stellar explosions, human-created risk of nuclear war, bioweapons that can be killed at once by establishing small outposts. Risk could be destroyed significantly, curtailed for more of certain classes add up to significant existential danger. Diversifying is the most effective mitigation strategy. The EU advantage. EU cannot solve conflict. Popescu, 20. The EU was sat on the sidelines, appearing irrelevant, no neighborhood. The EU seems relegated to observing others as take charge. The key players are not EU countries, Turkey, Russia, and as on sea military action to shore. Way to succeed. EU could use exclusively diplomatic economic power. The trend will continue. No way out of irrelevance. Now, the trade impact concede. Trade collapse causes nuclear war. Future tech causes extinction. 18. Future wars may not include nuclear, synthetic bio, nanotechnology, AI, doomsday weapons, risk of extinction, nuclear winter, 100,000 arms race, include cheaper cobalt bombs, fascination with self-replicating great goo, thus extinction, multi-pandemic through synthetic biology released by the terrorist state within 30 years. Doomsday weapon will be radiation most greater than all of nuke weapons. Green growth fails and locks on warming. Only a nuclear war catalyzes the transition. McDonald's, 19. A marine death, acidic ocean. Nations fail to avert clouds. Decarb require all world to stop and be replaced with non-carbon manufacturing result done with low carbon, which doesn't exist. Impossible supply chains. So move everything will have to be reformed. Grids, healing, and cooling systems are transformed on impossible global scale. The cost of these tens of thousands and political obstacles woven together. Inertia knows risky experiment. CCS risky experimental ineffectual conflict that halts. Econ destroys. Infra grows. Throws particles in the air. Nuclear not a result in apocalyptic loss. Nuclear winter based on shaky science. No reliable model to determine the human extinction. 2,476 nuclear devices. Conflict build mass cohesion. Collective action. Nuke serve as economic lever. Shock toss. Reimagining less suicidal. Save death thrones of zealots. Particulates to block out heat. Humans recover from warming and is not recover nuke not warming only possible not collective action is to halt and march towards oblivion. Nuclear war could be rational course. The GI's advantage. Pandemics cannot cause extinction. Thorson, 23. Scientists are skeptical of a pandemic that kills everyone. You have to reach everyone. Isolated corners and targeted research stations, ships, nuclear submarines, and bunkers would need to be transmitted without fail. You need to avoid medical treatments that would have to be maintained despite selective pressures towards less lethal variants. You need to find a way to evade public health measures. Now, no biody impact. Kariva, 18. Reductions in species which do not point to existential risk. Little evidence is declining species from elsewhere replace local species. No one is forecasting loss of all species. Global biody was have. What would be the mechanism for civilization? Biody loss not existential threat as nations develop. They will clean up air and water pollution. Reasonable to expect governments to act before eco-catastrophe. You can give me something else. Runoff impact is ocean acidification. That's wrong. Euler, 19. Alarm claims are baseless. Carbon beneficial to the ocean. CO2 makes the ocean less alkaline, never acidic. A pH of seawater can be very variable. pH varies regionally between and seasonally. Day and night variation was 9 to 7. Evolved CO2 levels. Marine life evolved CO2 levels many times higher than today. Or alkaline coral can flourish at this pH. Cold water can be more CO2 than warm. So if you warm water gives off CO2, the ocean's water contains enough dissolved calcium to bind all anthropogenic CO2 without affecting pH. Alkalinity has increased, not decreased. Marked at decrease. Okay. Now, no public good impact. They create universal public goods for everything. Capitalism also is inevitable post-plan. Now, solvency is a joke. 1, voluntary. They can't force farmers to adopt sustainable practices, so people still overuse fertilizer. 2, it's status quo descriptive. Their GI's good card doesn't say that any change is needed for GIs to make them successful. They just say that GIs exist. Sustainable farming is now. Proverb 21. Modern farming uses low-impact precision techniques that require less land and less energy, fewer chemicals. Traditional farming is failed to be protective of the environment. Not all advances offer new ways to help the environment, but when these innovations were affordable and farm reduction surge, environment was better protected. Irrigation water use has fallen by 46%, energy use by 41%, greenhouse gas emission by 31%. Environmental gains weren't achieved by switch to organic farming. Environmental footprint has become progressively smaller, and ag is resilient. UN use 19. Farmers can boosting their ability to cope with disaster natural shocks, disaster risk reduction efforts make economic sense through multi-year trials on 900 farms in 10 countries. They are more buffers against disasters. Last time marked against disasters.
Okay, are you good?
Yes.
Okay, I want to start on the spark turn.
Yeah.
Your card says nuclear war can induce the creation of large cobalt bombs as doomsday weapons or attacks on nuclear plants and cause a chain event that causes civilizational collapse. Why does it not cause extinction?
Me.
No, our piece of tertiary evidence is descriptive of future nuclear wars using cobalt bombs, etc., not status quo like nuclear war.
Yeah.
Okay, so an eventual nuclear war could cause extinction, but a nuclear war in the status quo is good. Got it?
Yeah, our evidence makes the argument that right now we don't have the technological means to escalate to that state. However, future technology will make it so that that existential nuclear war is inevitable. However, the turn would solve that.
Okay, I want to go to the tax cuts dissad.
Yeah.
Your uniqueness evidence is about Trump's proposed tax cuts and that legislation. The internal link piece of evidence is about a completely separate proposal and Biden taxing the commercial space sector. Do you have any evidence that says that these policies are the exact same?
Well, right now, Congress is working on quote Trump's quote big beautiful bill, which encompasses all of these policies, and the budget upon reconciliation encompasses all of this.
And which piece of evidence says this?
Well, we can read evidence in the 1NR that says this, but like that is what is happening in Congress right now. I'm telling you.
Okay. Let's talk about the T. Let's talk about T. If I'm in the room, does that mean I'm throughout the entire room?
We don't think that plain meaning is a good standard to hold ourselves to.
Why not?
Well, we also don't think that
We'll
in
make
might
arguments.
mean in might mean throughout in the in might mean within in the abstract, but we have said in debate we should not view it as such because of our stance.
We'll make arguments as to why debatability outweighs in the 1NR.
But also like that's not
Okay, so
Yeah.
sure. Let's talk about the Regneg counterplan. Which piece of evidence, like where do you think a single card says that if we do one negotiated rulemaking process, all of a sudden AI just goes away?
Well, the Kerwin evidence makes a claim about how Regnag sets precedent. They are influential. You can probably answer
Okay.
this better.
I want to ask about that then. If they're influential and they set precedent, negotiated rulemakings have happened several times. It literally says they've received higher ratings than commercial
Well, that is
proceedings.
post.
Why does that not solve for artificial
So
intelligence?
two things. One, past regnegs were not binding. This one is, which basically distinguishes.
Which piece of evidence says that the thing that will save rogue AI is
Our
a
piece
binding?
of, well, it's not just
negotiable-
rogue AI, but our piece of Kerwin evidence says that binding regnegs. The second, you didn't let me get to that. Loper last year
Yep.
created they had negotiated rulemaking.
Okay, so
no
control
regnegs.
F
So-
binding, it only appears in the text.
Well, the
What kind
argument
of
is that
piece of evidence
Loper
is
gutted like federal agencies. The counterplan would revitalize that by ordering a regulatory negotiation over the plan, which would revitalize agency power,
Okay,
which we
and
think
then
is
what
key.
is the incentive to solve rogue AI, arms racing, and bioweapons?
Well, regulatory negotiations like
Our evidence is about like stakeholder cooperation.
yeah, exactly.
Being able to solve those things, which is what.
A regulatory negotiation would set precedent for stakeholders to come together and solve those in litigation.
10 minutes.
It was only 9 off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like,
You didn't say like ace-back or anything?
No.
I think I'm good. Yeah. I mean, tell me if that's wrong. I can see space cold bit extinction just internal litigation, and then it takes us wrong. Because extinction and level of mass rules, so we need to survive. Yeah, this makes sense. Obviously. 9.4. I'm in Sen. Are you looking for it?
1 sec. Yeah.
Order is E advantage. Then the GI advantage. T subs. T penalties. 3 tier. I said 924, right? For prep.
I don't remember.
Okay. 3 tier. After 3 tier, it's Death K, Luminosity, or Death Cold, whatever they called it. Luminosity, Regneg, the word pick, the Contier, tax cuts.
Can I get that again?
Yeah. From the top word.
Yeah. Or uppercase.
Aftercase, T subs, T penalties, 3 tier, Death K, Luminosity K, the V pick, like word pick, the Contier, tax cuts, yeah.
Oh, 1 sec, just stop.
Where's regnegs?
Regneg is above Contier. Or no, the V pick, my bad.
After luminosity.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
right. Are we good?
Yeah.
Right. 121, their evidence is not specific in friends, extinction, unity, tackles global security, unsafe emerging tech, climate, and rule law issues, climate and catastrophes, political independently. Critical commitments against Russia and China are broken, and bullying, racial aggression worldwide. That's Schneider. Now, the spark proper, 1, either equals everyone or rebound, or 20, even if collapse is established already 7 times, while the police makes harder, more likely easier. Disastrously resources ruins easier access, be reserved than ever, tools and all scattered. 2, extinction waste is morally equivalent to social class, or 20, extinction store potential and locking in forever, where the rules consider global pacts impossible. 3, establish even not extinction effects in the future can kill the world with no way back. 3, nuclear war is existential, concede space call prevents extinction, surviving with tech is key to prevent that, which means it's an impact turn, and also takes out all their scenarios because we'll be diversified on multiple planets, and their evidence is explicit that it prevents death from emerging tech, nuke winter, radiation, and ozone pollution. And all 23, a nuclear detonation causes impairment to reproduce and cascading effects move substance far beyond less than 1,000 years. Nuclear plume obstructs solar radiation, it's altering climate globally, and increases radiation, less oxygen and lower tech causing declining crop, making any positive fit for human fires. Spread particles, so erosion and depletion, accelerate extinction, single site cannot be used to have additive effect, nuclear winter, and the planet habitable for humans. I think I forgot to say this, but the spark card also says that nuclear war causes extinction, which takes out all their defense. Now, Churchins highlight a high Q has no quals. You get new scenarios when they read the impact or scenario for escalation, no emerging tech structure. In all 19, history consequences alarmist, extrapolating tenses, problematic tech, not limited to promise to effects that temper consequences, destabilizing their sons, stabilizing others, other factors, immediate effects, geography, distribution of power, strategy, politics, social variables. War is not inevitable. The pursue 20. 3. The nuclear use of has been uneasy. The peace panic of the last year war is only because afraid of adversaries. Deterrence is holding up well. Market holding up well. Now, the warming turn is a non-starter. We solve it, which is the one you see evidence about soil reverse causation. Solving all warming already, but the scenario is answered above because nuclear is certainly far worse. But space golf solves it irrespective of that. Yeah, GIs. 2, dropped impacts, polarization, inequality causes nuclear war in civil, domestically, and also causes extinction through other emerging techs. These cause extinction. Their evidence is non-responsive. Density, no security, increased spread, and not lethality, not affects collapse mental functioning, and up into engineering causes global catastrophe. That's bound. Biodiversity drives extinction, ecosystem functions, underpin resources necessary for life. That's Chabra. Fertilizer impact, checking increased use is created to prevent dead sunset, upend marine biodiversity. Critical survival. Now, the public goods impact is not about cap. It is an impact affecting governments, prevents buffers against ecocide, nuclear war, through disaster, health, FOPO, and tech failures. That's which independently solves all their scenarios. Now, voluntary is not relevant because our evidence says farmers will follow on if the tech is developed. Scope descriptive is wrong because our evidence says that the plan is prerequisite to adopt GIs domestically. Sustainable farming now, and I group them, it's not. There's disincentives for adoption due to lack of protection and status quo. And their evidence does not speak to public goods specifically, which means it's not solve global issues. Now, go to T subsets. 1, we meet anyone with GI is affected by AF2, planet vacuum is best. In 3, counter in means within via. And 21, in limits term within that follows and or means either both. 1, in or meaning A, X or Y or both. Of includes parts. Relation between part and whole. Of can mean other things. Insert their definition for reference. Significant is known to be large. Supreme Court Alaska 20. Significant defined as known to be large. The plan we mean it does not mean all. It only says it solely belonging to, which means it does not mean that we don't meet. It needs to be in every subset. Now, 4, prefer 1, predictability. We read best definitions. Hyperspace, common meaning, and social language. Sentence proves it's not universal. 2, ground left 3 apps. If you're not infinite picks. 5, reasonability. IP bad gap. Sui generis the CAC process conference. Infringement makes limit basis on their T interrupt check. 6, reasonability can be interspersed based on. And subset crowd. Now, T penalties caused by everything from above. 1, we meet the plan. Increase damage for existing GIs through greater legal protection. 2, counter. So the IP includes a scope process or force in middle. 18, 87 reporter statute whether it's actions around the IP that refers to protection to the rights owner. These are required on scope. These are proofs or strength remedies. 4, prefer A predictably set the best indexes in literature. BF ground, they delete the vast majority of apps. On top, in limiting pre-existence steps, all inherent apps by functional limits. IP apps, sui generis, cap it. Process competence, infringement picks, lit basis, other T interest checks. 6, crossbite. Oh, I just said that. Give up. What am I doing? Okay. 3 tier. 1, reject non-falsifiable procedures. Infinite uncritical tweaks activity exists that could slightly improve its quality. None are net valid. Because not disprove the app. 2, we meet the app matters to meet in law. 3, can't solve it's possible. To verify if we embody a relationship. 4, definite politics bad. Title. 20, dynamics have also relevant subjectivity, differential approach. Friends centering the marginalized focus on roots, the alkaline around social cover for application responsibility, placing accountability on select people inside from criticism and transformation. Ultimately, into political crossbat that. 2, luminosity. K. 5, forcing debates, morally stake identities, violence, patronizing, causes authenticity testing. 6, cross by reasonability from above. 7, cross by framework from below. Death K. 1, framing the app, way the app can compare alternative that cannot result in the plan. That's only point stasis, which otherwise affect debate in 1 C. The experience clash. 2, case of waste is irreversible and kills everyone because all can't solve IP. 3, print both. 4, no link. The 1 C is distinct from graphic depictions. 5, picks, perfcon, private mindset, and global fiat voters. They can't justify world peace, can't predict it and justify severance, but they've used fiat and death impacts too, which proves it's a non-starter. 6, debates about death are good to Sony. At all 20, studies just education, high school showing no effects, heart value of debate. Results show students appreciate like communicating, produce liberation, great empathy is possible advantage by anxiety by directing. Text content, luminosity, K, cross by everything for the death. death K, permanent both, permanent all classified framework and theory from above. They use it too. Rejecting our ability to use fiat is also a voter made law. Are both Indian, so we also relied on it to challenge the state. Their evidence is about poverty porn, not fiat itself. And you should classify the death case stuff above, that which is an impact turn to their reps links. Now, Regan. 1. Providing consultation key. 2. Print account bench is not certain nor me. See, 9. Define shit is ought to be shall in laws expressed by mandatory should recommend institutional meaning. 3. Campus must be functioning and textually competitive. Key to Afghan objectivity. Intermediate. 4. Print account plan. Delay campus is not competitive. 5. Print plan campus over other issues is not intrinsic because it removes the function of specification. But below we'll send the text out in the doc. 6. Can't solve a signal. The perception of a preemptive unilateral federal commitment is critical to diplomatic cooling to deter adversaries. Atypical acts decimates legitimacy and chills relations. That's coordination in Rus Khan. B. Say no. Current negotiations are stalemate and the U.S. is diametrically opposed. That's nation. C. Delay takes 14 months. Lovers. 8. Interesting clearance of their process creates a bigger problem. Delay was caused by internal abuse. Even though the committee had reached concerns that EPA took 14 months to publish upon rule agencies, may institute rigid internal regulatory development process do not provide flexibility necessary for readiness to be successful. 7. No spill of no even one instance is sufficient. 8. Process campus voted. It seals the app. Cause block recycling and that zaps abscess. This make fairness clash. 9. No impact that was sparked. Emerging tech defense above. The pick. 1. Permanent boat. 2. Permanent account plan. 3. Permanent any. 4. Cross-by framework. In theory, from above, you cannot get offense off representations. 5. D is not transformative. Barrier 20. Addition to the definite article, D is not transform the generic nature of the term. 6. Plan fault. The USFG is not real thing. So the account plan, so the pick results in nothing. 7. Cross-by all the deficits above. Because at best, it will be an irregular process. Kantian. 1. Extinction outweighs under con. It's a contradiction because no one can be alive to will, which outweighs every link they have. 2. Confirms Bendeck. 18. Content entails that people have right to express and government is obligated to protect the creation cannot be taken without consent. CI leads yes determination contra proposal lead chaos and fetters. Not bothered approach hinders distribution. No CI can be made. 4. 3. Defer to ethical modesty calculation. Frame models as a sliding scale. Not yes no. That's best preserved engagement. Is only objective metric. 4. Utils best green. 7. Judgment driven by evolutionary forces unlike any moral theory can accommodate intuitions. Consequences of the cheating as object by counting every person ontological answers. Tautological answers don't explain because the people make the opposite judgment. 5. Act respect even if construed the state is evaluated by perceptions of consequences, which turns agency. 6. Conduct a voter causes time and statute. Dispose solves. Task cuts. 1 will pass Mando. 425. GOP leaders targeting a strangle. Several areas of disagreement in House. Have a slim margin. Lose only 3 Republicans. Package is dead on arrival. Dozen Republicans voted against negotiating. And finalizing far more difficult. 2. Influence and unity is low and fails economists. 25. Trump has less authority over Republicans. No margin for dissent. Has a small majority of just 2 Senate dilute radical ideas as moderation. The House resistance not radical enough. Most opposition. Compromise. 3. Taxes backfired and driving call appeal. 25. The taxes will increase debt by $4 trillion. Make their 4th cut and undelivered on promises. 5. Cutting would generate. But each time as well has been wages stagnate. Wealth contrast. 2017 delivered nothing. So the highest funded buybacks, the extinction was a case above for the space internal. It's about the proposed Biden tax hikes, not the TCGA cuts that's inserted. 5. Colonization is double. 16. Given new initiatives, colonization will never occur through corporate and government efforts. Market corporate and government efforts. 6. The is not intrinsic. You could do the account plan in the plan. 7. A link the Congress played off as conceding to demand by the EU.
Very good.
Give me signature smaller. Apologies for the text. I'm good now.
Okay. Real quick, what were reasons to reject?
There's a lot. Condo, process account plans, picks, private mindset, perfcon. I think word picks were there too.
Okay.
That should be about it. I might be missing something.
Okay. On Regneg, the lovers evidence takes 14 months. Where does this card assume a regulatory negotiation? It's about agency action broadly.
Well, the account plan goes through agencies. Like, who does the regulation? I guess.
Well, it doesn't assume a regulatory negotiation in which businesses convene and give their input.
Well, if
That
businesses
feels
have
like
to
it would
give
take more
input,
time.
yes.
Like
Yeah,
if
that
they're
just means it
getting
takes more time.
input,
Like,
if the bare minimum of time is 14 months.
that magnifies the deficit because not only does it have to go through administrative procedures, but also it has to go through business opposition.
Well, that's not how the Regneg. Okay, whatever. So the.
Well, this part is about like rule clearance and like regulatory.
No, it's about agency
negotiation.
action. It's about the EPA. It's one empiric about the
Quote,
EPA.
rigid internal regulatory development processes.
Yeah, it's not
that's
about
about
regulatory negotiation that brings everyone to the table
I
and
think it is.
convenes
Like
to.
we can agree to disagree.
Sure,
but
that's fine.
we'll have
The
to say.
Savitz evidence.
Did not read it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The signaling deficit. Where does it say that the AF is key?
What do you mean the AF is key?
Like, where does it say that through the AF's process, it's key to send the necessary signal to other people?
Yes, the whole point of the AF. Wait, I want to explain this real quickly. The whole point of the AF, why it beats his count plan, is because the count plan looks like Trump is forced to adopt something because he's doing it through an agency and businesses are demanding it. The
How
app is seen as a preemptive concession to the EU, i.e., Trump will present the plan as, okay, let's cool down trade barriers, and present it to the EU as a way to cool down tensions.
Well,
The
Trump
campaign does
has-
not do that because it goes
Trump
through agencies.
leveraged a 145% tariff a week ago. Why is
Yes,
that not
the
doing
plan
something?
counters that. That's uniqueness for the app.
How
Our
does
evidence
that
says that.
eliminate protectionism?
Okay, it provides a diplomatic buffer against it. It says that it cools diplomatic relations.
A
And
diplomatic
importantly, the
buffer
first
and
card, hold
trademark
up.
policy.
Don't.
Sure,
The
go
first
ahead.
card says that it's, quote, a non-negotiable negotiating cost for the EU. This is the only thing the EU wants. The app reverses all past perceptions. But you cannot contest solvency even if you try to assert this Trump stuff, because the 1NC explicitly said concede that
Sure.
you solve trade and trade solves war. So you can't get
The
new
tariff stuff
deficits.
is
We
fine.
conceded that.
I'm talking about in the context of like the signaling deficit. On
Yes,
the
I just explained it. The
But,
comp
yeah.
plan is looked like
Okay, so
Trump
why
is forced to do it, not that
The
Trump's doing it
comp
preemptively.
convenes relative like stakeholders and has Trump agreed to the plan
No,
as
it
well,
looks
and
like
then
Trump is
pass
agreeing
it?
to business
Where is the
interests,
signaling-
not
what is the link
preemptively
to the
cooling
signaling
relations.
deficit? Wait, can you explain the link to the signaling deficit?
I just explained it. It's looked at Trump being forced to do it. It's atypical. Trump would never do it. But
Why
also,
wouldn't you do it?
well, Trump, like through normal processes, Trump would never use it through the comp plan. And the Bruce Kahn evidence says that atypical acts are seen as uncertain and reduces legitimacy. So the fact that the comp plan is seen as businesses forcing Trump to do that means the EU won't follow on and reduce its buffers.
That's it.
What's the word?
Okay. Advantage 1, sparkling proper. You should probably get sparkling stuff for the luminosity K, the depth K, the word pick, the tax cuts DA, the comp DA, and then GIs.
What was before the K?
What was before the first K? Advantage 1.
Okay. Is there a doc?
Yes.
Alright,
I'm good.
Okay.
Industrial society locks in extinction. One self-replicated Grey Goo. It's an because of tech fascination that's searching extinction. Strickland 10 billion alarm. Set assemblers to build other assemblers. Manufacturing becomes exponential. The Grey Goose in there could forever all organic matter. So more assemblers consume everything. Earth will be reduced to a lifeless mass. 2 synthetic biology terrorists make use inevitable that's searched in extinction. So for 22 extras, engineered pathogens, research modifying pathogens to make them more dangerous using molecular biology. Directed at evolution and biological engineering. 3 passive SETI. Barnett 22 project to secure substantial funding for extraterrestrial signals. Passive SETIs existential race of civilizations. The broadly highly optimized message intent to hijack civilization set code for AI that takes over how to build an extremely powerful device that causes total destruction. 4 chemical contamination. Turns to 20 chemical weapons possible in the future. Mortality plastic relatively small about kill everyone on Earth. No mission toxins are put unstable. Technology advanced agent destroy chemical. Meet all criteria for catastrophe. 5 AGI. It's inevitable. Demogani 24 AGI. Most experts yes majority accepted singular before 2016 algorithms to processing power money. Good at exponential only matter of time before machine surpasses quantum computing reduce cost algorithms on quantum unlocks singularity. Advanced AI collapses society, overthrows governments and forms artificial corporations to wipe out humanity. Leposky 16 UFAI harm values misaligned untyped village cults. Criminals deniers researchers control food power transport company personhood dominant market that collapses false info and assassination feud planetary crisis humans destroy itself governments in paranoia engaging in attacks control judicial systems tracking conflict easy for MA take over drones cyber exterminate humanity design virus in minutes take over money land REM internet destroy planet or universe 6 Death Stars Church 22 units nuke star explosive reactions sub planets plutonium and Jupiter and Saturn pressures collapse core of such future Detonate gas planet Death Star release energy equal to suns in seconds destroy all planets in the solar system 7 particle accelerators Ratner 18 particle accelerators U 1 peak builds to China Gulf space itself vacuum space unstable collider creates concentrate energy creating particles cause phase transition which tears spikes a cosmic calamity we turn the case nuclear war is inevitable in the long run Ferris 22 risk low in long-term nuclear and now Putin use explode nukes to turn war with US of risk nuclear number of nukes go up more nukes more use of design flaws human open area happenstance, instability, global nuclear regime, Saudi, Japan, Soko, Brazil, Ukraine, Iraq, Libya, Libya, NPT cannot withstand new rivals closer. Let's just say war now is better. Future nuclear wars ensure existential cobalt balls and doomsday weapons that church in war now is preferable. Church 22 tech progress in nukes, gigas bombs, cheap bombs, plutonium, laser isotope separation, fusion, cheap reduced regional wars, terrorism, false flag warfare, power plants, super clades, EMPs, tsunamis, target fires, astro deflection available in the 21st century. Cause human extinction in decades. Technology advanced by many orders of magnitude. Now they say rebound or extinction. It does not cause extinction, which will be later. Nuclear war forces the transition and overwhelms all barriers. 1. Recovery. War ruins the economy and destroys the infrastructure necessary for economic growth. That's McDonald. 2. Cohesion. Conflict. You build social cohesion that shocks humanity into collective action towards sustainability. That's McDonald. 3. Resources. Dartnell. 15. Nuclear war not of humanity. We amounts back already consumed. Most oil, coal. F. Central. So organization of society easy to understand. Depends on F. You can't spell metal, glass, concrete, fertilizer, energy, chemical spills, bulk, plastics, pesticides, and plastics. Industrial civilization will FF extremely difficult for survivors. Beckstead 15. Unable to sustain modern industry, manufacturing, trade, nuclear war destroy available products. People have very useful skills. Rebuilding after the extinction have vastly smaller skill. Hunter-gatherer, farmer skills. Recovered could trade people. Less tech advanced societies less likely to have rebuilt tech. Advanced civilization that's sufficient to solve our scenarios or all premise on future tech, which a nuclear war would not end, or it is about past empirics, which does not assume a future nuclear war. Now extinction ways conceded. Space coal, it's wrong. 1. We cited universal extinction scenarios which above. 2. Space coal is because of tech, which the turn also solves. There's no evidence that we get to space via the Earth or the status quo. Concede tax cuts won't pass. Colonization is not inevitable, which will be on the DA. Now, the Bodic evidence is wrong. Nuclear war is not existential. 1. Empirics. Thousands of devices have been detonated. That's McDonald. 2. Particulates residue for war would block the heat that is driving global warming. That's McDonald. 3. Expert consensus. The risk is 0.001%. That's search. 4. Empirics. Hardy. 22. Researchers run simulations to study most detailed models of global war between US and China. Worst case, 5 billion died in all countries facing security. Australia unable to produce enough to sustain New Zealand. Also 5. Land mass haul 21. US Russia dismantled 50,000 in stockpiles recycled. US eliminated classes of the nukes destroy the world. It's urban legend, not based on data. Every weapon 100 mile gradient land masses 1.5 million miles, far less unlikely forms that use it in total war. Actual area is 150,000 square miles. These numbers verifiable. 6 islands, Halpern. 23 research predict survivors in New Zealand, Australia, Solomon Island, Finland, 2 SS based on resilience, health, infrastructure, energy, food, water, the security, climate, environment, not evenly distributed, favorable position in Australia, abundance of food, irrigation, complete energy, self-sufficiency, an island, social, political cohesion, and stability. Here's 14 islands, all stable, connected, and self-sustaining, which I inserted for reference. Nuclear winter is wrong. The founding scientists debunk it. Brown, 95 scientists who introduced nuclear winter overestimated severely, rejects suggested that a nuclear winter could bring extinction and reduce uncertainty, inherent climatic effects, new didn't refine his productions. Radiation is wrong. It's wrong. Hilton 24 radiation fallout less likely to kill everyone in air. A small areas in the southern hemisphere receive basically no fallout. It diminishes rapidly. Tishman for 24 radiation diminishes rapidly in intensity 1,000 hour after weapons. Then 8 meters above. Mark the coordinate meters above. No ozone. Nuclear. There's no impact. Abardine 21 UV beneficial effects. UVB needed for vitamin D deficiency, cardiovascular disease, cancer, plague, vitamin positive, moderate loss of O3, DNA damaging for very low levels. UVC is still not a health for the nuclear war. Bodikick is also wrong. 1. Endocrine disruption is wrong. Bodikick of Ronek at all 22 ED showed no adverse effect on fertility of the max hot cells to produce hormone-like activity reduced by different social supported by studies remains unproven and unlikely to food. I inserted that 3 biodiversity. It is local, which was considered. Now the tertiary concession is wrong. Tertiary says full future nuclear war causes extinction, and McDonald says status quo nuclear war doesn't. There's no indent tertiary disqualified, and we read new evidence above. No emerging tech. It was done above. There are evidence that assume our specific scenarios and uniqueness and the profit motive. There is not regulations because of profit. Now war not inevitable. It is inevitable because of new tech, Putin, and non-state actors, which the evidence says assume. Absolute warming is wrong. Fossil fuel emitters and lack of tech adoption block in droughts, wildfires, storms, and knock-on effects. But nuclear war solves by eliminating fossil fuel industries. That's McDonald. Nuclear war solves warming. Day 22 nuclear war to counter global warming model suggests temperatures fall by 18. Nuclear war to spark fire sources help warming entirely. Their card never says that they solve all warming. Now the EU advantage proper. There's no conflict mediation impact. Total neglect of the Armenia Azerbaijan conflict proves that they have no foreign policy powers. Regional powers like Turkey will bypass mediation efforts because they only respect military might. That's capacity. Trump dumps GM 4 years of Trump promised to be crucial for U.S. European relations in 2015. His approach for distance. Europe from Washington. Europe is profoundly unsettled by Trump's return. U.S. European relations face potential deterioration. Mark card deterioration. The terminal is also nuclear war. Now the trade terminal is also nuclear war. Luminosity not going for it. Deadcan not going for it. Word pick not going for it. Concede the perm ever tested Constitution 3. Reject the argument not the team. Tax cuts not going for it. Space inevitable is wrong. It's dumped by years after the card. And space also also doesn't solve risks like AI that spreads to space, which was done above. The United States federal government should pass Joe Biden's tax hikes, concede the rehighlighting the counterpoint solves we get to space now, and then nuke everyone on Earth, which solves us and not them. 2 and C counterpoints are key to testing and add-ons. The cons not go for concede. Util condo we get what we did. One flex scale counterpoints to key add pairs nebulous, requiring multifaceted testing. DAs are few and non-unique. After like best offer to the 2AC first and last speeches. Prep advantages and vague plans. 2 innovation fallback tracks. Encourage new arcs turning research. 3 info processing hard 1 and Cs. Force 2AC efficiency and best answers. Fostering critical thinking now. Defense 1 diminishing utility. Adding more advocacy peaks and value. 2 skew inevitable TTA speed. Highlighting framework case 3 arbitrariness dispo has no definitional consensus. Oh, on the luminosity can concede framework, which takes out the voter. Now the GI's advantage. No food inequality or polarization impact the terminals to all is nuclear war. We've impact turned that polarization. It's also inevitable under Trump and Congress good like now. No pandemics impact one selective pressures. Like existential pandemics must be both lethal and infectious, but lethal diseases kill 2 quick and infectious ones are harmless. 2 island solved, which is on the turn nuclear war also solves. It eliminates globalization and other fragile conditions which cause disease. Now no biody impact statistics. Reductions in richness have never caused extinction. Species replace each other, and even a 90% reduction doesn't cause extinction. Their evidence assumes the death of entire species, which is not their scenario. Now, no ocean impact. 1 stats. Carbon helps the ocean. It gives them less alkaline, and the pH already varies right now. 2 empirics. Marine life has developed with more ocean acid than we had today, which is earlier. Their evidence is all erratic with no word. It just asserts that we depend on the ocean.
Can you send the Trump tariffs cards?
It was on the EU advantage.
Before cross 6
Wait.
It was the first card I read. Here, let me see if it's in the back. But
It's under. It's not on the Spark portion.
Okay, wait, can you tell me where it is? I couldn't find it.
it's like advantage EU. I'm at a
Oh, I see, okay, yeah, that can just confuse me. Alright, yeah, I'll just wait for that for everything else.
Okay, wait, we'll see. It's like, okay, that was 4 seconds. Okay, or.
Are you good?
Yep.
Well, I need to get my back open. Alright, you said you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to confirm, you've said that, like, nuclear causes social collapse, right?
We've said nuclear war causes the collapse of industrial society, but not extinction.
Okay, so, like, we wouldn't be able to rebuild back to, like, millions or billions of people?
We wouldn't be able to build technology, fossil fuels, things like that. Like,
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I want to confirm something. You did not read the Farku card, right?
No.
Okay. I just want to ask a couple questions. I guess the space call stuff. The only answer was just that like it's dumped by the past 4 years and that's it, and just count plan.
and also our scenarios are about universe destruction, so they'd also kill everyone on space.
Oh, okay. I just want to go through each one. I guess like why would like tech development be like the only thing that stops it? Or like, I guess why wouldn't regulations be inevitably be adopted to prevent any of these scenarios?
Because, well, first, a couple of these scenarios are about the profit motive. They're about things being built right now in labs, i.e., the particle accelerators. Evidence talks about a new one being built in China, and also humans just not knowing that these things would be so bad, and then inevitably using them, and then those causing extinction.
Okay, wait, but
I mean, it depends on the specific one. Like
in the
you
one
guys
and
talked
C, you said that regulations solve all emerging tech on the Regnet counterplan. I
Yeah.
guess how can you reconcile this? If regulations are sufficient to solve all emerging tech, how can you reconcile that with like some tech won't be regulated?
Well, we haven't said regulations solve all tech. We have cited
One and C tag.
well, no, it says like bioweapons, WMDs.
Okay,
and,
so bioweapons, WMDs, biotech, all 0 now.
no, just bioweapons and WMDs.
Okay,
But
so we don't
but-
need to answer chemical weapons, bioweapons.
well, no, that's only if the Regneg counterplan happens. Obviously, like it's not going to happen in the status quo. We have said like you'd have to win if Regneg is happening right now.
All right, but like I guess how if regulations solve some emerging tech, why do they solve all emerging tech?
Well, one, those regulations are not happening right now as per Regneg inherency, not contested in the 2AC. But second, they'd only solve some because our particle accelerators one talks about ones being built in China. Our AI one talks about global development, while the Regneg would be domestic.
Okay, particle accelerators, like why does this say that like it would be successful?
What it says that there's literally a particle accelerator being built in China
Yeah, but like why would this be successful to destroy humanity?
because our evidence says that particle accelerator, like, I'm not sure what your question is. Our evidence says that particle accelerators.
This card is from a syndicated Columbus. Like why do you think this like it's actually an impact card?
I'm pulling it up. Our
First
runner.
card from a senior writer, the second card from a co-founder of some random institute. Next card, expert predictor. And
Well, no.
commentator.
Well, okay, like all
Like,
of them are
what
cited.
these
All
impacts?
like the
Next
body of the
card,
cards.
ES and physics.
Like the okay,
Next
yeah,
card.
ES in physics is qualified. For,
MBA. Like you think all these people are like.
well, one like
sufficiently
every
qualified
single
to make
every single
predictions?
one is citing other papers and bodies of
Okay.
studies in the
Those
body
are
of the
in
card
the in the site. But why do you think these people are sufficient to make claims about extinction
because they are citing
Science.
studies that make those claims.
from EAs? Sure.
Oh, we're on some break.
Don't do that. They can see that. That's why you should emphasize this almost. And say it's process because they can see the cards. Yeah. And make sure like you can explain what you have worked. Like you just look at yeah. Yeah. Also. Yeah.
Sure. So eventually I say it's possible.
Yeah.
Wait, can it's possible?
Yeah.
Okay, so
703.
Alright, setting it up. The order is the Regnet counterplan. Or advantage 2, then Regnet, then advantage 2. Actually, I'll go back to wherever PerfCon was, whatever K. I'll just do that first, then the Regnet counterplan, then advantage 2.
Wait, it's been shoot after Regneg now?
Yeah, Regnet
I
advantage
missed it for some.
2. Okay,
Or give me a second down. And then I'll get it.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, Boston and Raleigh. Okay.
Wait, also, in case you didn't get prep, 655. We took a look.
PerfCon, not a voter, can see framework and is justified by conduct, the Regnet counterplan. 2AC1 is due both. It's mutually exclusive. The counterplan is binding and in good faith. The permit implements the plan regardless of stakeholder consensus. Good faith negotiations are key to resolving the internal harder. 9. Part the collective governance that requires an agreement. Part of that will be implemented when one party's intention of fulfilling result lack of seriously greatly affected dynamics of process. Literally feel a difference. OHA seems to have systemic difficulty that generate considerable consternation. 2. Offense defense. The counterplan alone is solvent, so there's only risk that the perm fails. Use offense defense. It's most logical and real world. And the 2C2 was the Jew counterplan. It's severance, voting issue for net ground, and clash. Now competition competition should solely involve mandates, permuting effects, kills ground because any common plan could result in the plan. The result is a synonym of enact and means by law. Words in page 64. It enact defined as to establish by law and protection. McKean 5. Protection restricted by law to preserve. An IPR must be legally binding. Walkers 13. Intellectual property rights are legally binding enforcement at national level and should requires a mandate. Powell 22 should suggesting encouragement rather than mandatory but disagree no matter how phrased should instruct. Now the common plan never fields law. Solvency is by result forcing us to win. Stakeholders agree. That's Kerwin and it doesn't mandate law. Freeman 2K. Committees now consider issues rigid predetermined discussion take on life of their own and Ragnag. Now preferred force of law is key to all ground unenforced cases by core DAs like politics, court clog, PTO, trade-off, and econ independently and explodes limits. Permuting this counterplan makes any other advisory action topical like guidance, agency memos, or dicta. Now 2C3 was other issues. It's intrinsic. The counterplan orders Ragnag over the plan, nothing more. That counterplan must be functionally competitive. Prefer one ground plan specific eliminates all generics, an impossible burden under against new apps that destroy fairness. Germanus is meaningless and will shift you incur small cases that dodge class. Shop Rex and neg uniqueness for DAs only are until less topic counterplans and bid the plan to stay in the game and forces process-specific advantages which serve as a functional limit for app advantages. 2. Real-world decision makers look at functional compatibility, not text in a vacuum. Functional alone is key to research since the lit base speaks to real policy debates. Now 3. Education and learning about Ragnag is vital. Castillo 17. Higher skills analysis, synthesis, evaluation not sufficiently developed through the traditional tests and paper simulation. Develop higher level skills, regulation and characterized by vigorous interaction with current participants to be skillful and employers value these skills making development. Marked at development now 4 words. Almost 2 ways will shape off words to be out of DAs. 5. No offensive grade to the ground because all counterplans are distinct from the plan. They speak last and have infinite prep to find deficits like certainty, delay impact, the benefit theory, and primitive counterplan all check a Not independently, other issues failed. Info sharing harder. 82. Negotiations rules must be ripe if and yet not crystallized as sufficiently permutation issue may not be ready because info is insufficient. Subject matter negotiation needs to be concrete. Now, to see where was planned then counterplan. The delay perm is intrinsic. It adds a temporal separation between the counterplan and the plan that's illegitimate. Counterplan alone fields in all steps in immediate succession. There's no additional timeline. Reject it. It can delay kills all ground. Independently, there's no textual basis for the change. That's ad hoc, allowing infinite reclarification that ruins clash. Now, it's never should. That's immediate. Sawyer 17. An ordinary common meaning of should is expediency. Prefer one strategy. Teams can permeate the app in 100 years. Fielding on a diagram and 2 limits are infinite. The amount of times the app can be implemented and it's incoherent. Doing the plan, the counterplan won't solve the net benefit because the plan is already perceived by the regnegs. Now 2C5 cross-apply the stuff from above. Now I'll extend solvency. The counterplan solves the case. It orders a regneg over the plan, competing relevant stakeholders over the plan and implementing the outcome is binding law. That's current deficits must be existential and judge kick if we lose or a judge kick is a logical extension of conduct. Now 2C6 was the signaling deficit. The counterplan looks more durable. It gives investors a say in the action of the plan. The result is identical adoption. Regneg flexibility doesn't impact perception. Freeman 2K. The data is support the claim regneg's flexible flexibility does not generate uncertainties and 93% of participants understood ground rules did not during unfamiliarity trust developed. They viewed ground rules as less important and it's a predictable process. At worst, there's no comparative differential. The counterplan that causes the plan. They have no evidence. It speaks to the process. 95% says the outcome is key. Their evidence has no key word that the counterplan does not encompass. Now, some uncertainty is inevitable from investors or economists, which is proven by inherency. They cannot quantify the difference. Now, 2C7 will say no. The U.S. being opposed does not matter. Their evidence is in the context of WTO objections, which does not implicate domestic policy and doesn't assume the regneg implementing the outcome into binding law. And if it's true, it applies to the app because it gets swapped in litigation. Now they say yes. Compromise negotiations make agreements more likely. That's currents and empirics prove effectiveness. Harder to agencies use regneg to develop most contentious rules. Navy, NPO, SHA, Forest Service, and negotiation rulemaking help resolve contentious issues that have eluded closure by traditional rulemaking. And the plan is popular. Every company enjoys stronger IP. Now 2C, it was delayed, no delay. 1 consensus to winning. Say yes. 1 proves that the plan is agreed upon fast. 2 statistics, it's faster. Freeman 2K. Empirical analysis 35. Negotiate rulemaking is prior to time-saving benefits from conventional rulemaking 2.8 versus 3 years. And 3 deadlines are normal means and solve COVID-19. Negotiations must have deadlines without them. Manipulation by parties more interested in delay than results agency critical in negotiation rulemaking. Now 4, there's no impact. The case is far off and IP has been unchanged for decades. A single negotiation is sufficient. Now the 5, the lovers evidence about 1 empirical internal review from the EPA, which doesn't assume stakeholders with stakes in the plan wanting to expedite it. Now 2C9 was no spillover, but the counterplan is key participation in negotiations and consulting stakeholders creates better policymaking functioning as a guiding framework to respond to existential crises. That's Barber. Is it good if I don't get to finish it? Okay. Spillover is certain that solvency proves rulemaking will be successful fostering widespread adoption. That's current and the counterplan spills over. Spence 1, cooperative regulation in the future depends on ability to prove its worth. Marked at worth and 2C time is process counterplans are voted on 1 testing and disproves the topic that finds the best policy. 2 neglects 3 arbitrariness and concede reasonability. Now the net benefit outweighs its tried AI ecosystem collapse are all coming soon. External the counterplan stakeholder and consultation of the plans as a precedent for collective action to involve multiple parties.
6:55.
advantage 2. And then I'll go to the counterplane and then back to advantage 1.
Is Spark
Sparks at the end.
Spark's at the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's prep. Don't read this the first time around if you're just doing that. And then this is all advanced shape.
Okay,
So
so what?
don't read this, the stuff I'm gonna highlight.
Yeah.
And read that.
And read this on.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
it's about 230.
Third doc or
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, you missed
Did
it.
I not send it?
I haven't gotten it yet, but
Yeah, I totally forgot to send it. Sorry.
you're good.
Okay. It was sent now.
Punch that one here. Alright, yeah, very good.
Actually, before the Regnet counterplane, throw politics on there.
Yeah, okay. Alright,
Okay, good. Yes, EU trade solvency, one strike, the one to conceive the advantage trade relations, prevent nuclear use between C dropped the inequality, stolen stops war 2, impairs the past administration, was able to smooth the relations and status quo and only replicate over the future. It's one bonding evidence, 3 single the aspects of to prevent it. That's the one single cross and cross 6, the counters past operations, but a trier dice, its overwhelms, Greenland and other barriers. The advantage to concede their idea of pandemic impacts that it takes out their centers in the 2 and C. Now go to the decide permutation to both resolves any risk of them going for the counterplan as a reason why it solves space colonization and eventually solves nuclear war in the future. Now go to the Regnet counterplan. Permutation to the counterplan is the way the plan can be done. Result does not require certainty, but it is in resolution of the plan. Webster 19 pencil and deliver. Result is an immediate PT 9 result determined after reflection. Words and phrases has zero intent to define. Only says expressing an opinion is similar to below in reference for green. Now should is not certain nor immediate. Our definitions are the most predictable. Any interpretation breaks the legal system because so many things like sentences would no longer be up to judges. Discretion. The second 99 should apply to them, but does not require a person on totally mechanistic and would impose a strict check on judges nor be aware of anything that leads to contrary result. Their own evidence also does not imply that it always has to be in every instance certain and immediate. Their interpretation justifies competition over anything having a status quo. Their evidence is not competition. Anything else kills practice the negative card. That says we never did patents over chalkboards. That's done definitely means a patent cannot apply to chalkboards. They have not defined should or protection or IPR to always be in every instance to be applicable. Now group the next 3 definitions. They're not in the context of strengthening the protection of IPR, even if IPR is law. The counterclaim's process protects IPR, even if IPR is law or has a legally binding effect. Second is it protects rights, even if rights are not the mechanism for protecting. Josh Clark can protect NBA's rooms without being the rooms themselves. So negotiated rulemaking can protect rights without including them. Tyler 9, protection of copyright and infringement, trademark infringement for competition purposes or support the reserve to the theories of appropriate competition protect the rights restriction is superior. Their limits argument is nonsense. Protection strictly a limited term of art rate is restricted to direct effects like they assume probably. And also the impact of charter IPR protection is estimated growth equation center to measure IPR measure of patent protection persecution characteristics of the patent laws are included coverage membership provisions of enforcement and duration. Strengthening of IPR does not need legal effect. Mandel 18 database or Supreme Court or statute conditions or strengthening IP protection. Many cannot be decided under binding legal authority. Generally create exception hard to be pressed with legal basis guides decisions better on the app than the neg because they always have functional limits and presumption to deficits to benefit betting on should use the neg social counterpoint and circumvention which checks pro predictability comes first. 8 term section of what is debatable beats better for education be one of the most debatable topics. We predict something closer to FR or arms sales, but the topic education is necessary for us to grow and learn from debates. Now they're saying there's a deficit saying no Congress and agency would be divided and selective inclusion moves critical components of the act from certainty. Even if the act happens in the short term inherency and agency perspective means the plan gets rolled back, they cannot durably fiat the consequence of the consultation doesn't get rolled back. Plan is popular is wrong. We spotted them. IPR gets hated on in Suicide. So it's another reason people would be incentivized to say no and it pairs for the net benefit is also dumb because the mistakes have happened in the past. The hard evidence inserted below for reference. The one in C evidence also inserted below for reference because we don't need a reasonable card because they have none. There's no way to solve for AI by regneg alone. Regneg sets a precedent, which means it has to be thumped. Now go. No impact will also be on the on spark. Now concede the rebounds impossible across 6 conceded, and the card's societal collapse is morally equivalent to extinction. Is irreversible, precludes infinite potential of failed word. That's word net cards. Are either out of context or agrees it's worse because it's the same as extinction, which means that we don't have to win any of the nuclear war cards extinction cards because they concede that societal collapse is the same impact, and this was a carded thing in the two we see. So there's no new answers. Now there's no emerging text that's structure card. Geography, power strategy, alliances, and uncertainty means no one versus developments. So the best evidence on obliterated their calls or classics. So even if I drop a specific scenario, we have indices to every single contextual piece of evidence that they have. Grey Goose impossible. Gross 17 will not happen. Is most likely insufficient to come back to world society support. Grey Goose highly unlikely. Grey Goose are impossible. Aliens are baked or for Grunge versus Bastards evidence or extraterritorial alone extraterritorial gas seems to be bad. Blessing we found nothing. There's no chemical nor bioweapons isn't predictive nor qualified. Also they conceded in cross checks that the impacts happen in their defense takes it out. There's no evil AGI. One empirics education legislation or contracts all confirm alignment is unable to kill switches. Humans would intervene to check back here to take over governments. Other AI for the worst case. The Cristiano 22 aligned AI reduce the risk of misaligned AI by advancing research demonstrating the risk in consuming the every agency. Usually expose the gross so the averaging extreme check they just perceive the threat risk difficult to we have to covertly take over the government's response. There's no impact to 17 chemical weapons or there's no impact to chemical weapons. That states the 16 chemical weapons are likely to pose their abandoned or international lawmaking extension challenging and just engineer the value on entry into debate. Go back to AGI stuff. Even if the right AI creates infinite value, reprinting one AI upload, brain seizing hunger no longer issues abolishing agents, rating the death optional nanobots stuff we shall live for together in ship to avoid suffering. There's no Death Star search into straw man that concludes assets purely theoretical and possible to use. That's inserted below in reference for green. Black holes would disappear instantly, which would be dead by now, so there's no particles. So the rays Cavalia, it's 10 black holes with a mass that's extremely small and used unstable. The intensity of Hawking radiation depends on the mass of the collision emerges. It's much larger than experiments that's been going on for literally billions of years. Space calls solves future nuclear wars. It means it's intergalactic in multiple universes. So even if this universe is destroyed, we can still get out. There's no future wars. The turns can be held to prevent aggression, which confirm exit great power words. That's Don Brusso. There's the Don Brusso evidence. Space call is inevitable. It's not. Go to the disad. The space call is inevitable. It's not dumb because it's predictive of the future. Local and governmental effects. Well, efforts worldwide will get service takes out the counterplay because it's not the U.S. now because it's not the U.S. alone. Now the
Read this index.
what's the other stuff you had? The app solves warming. They spotted us the advantage soil loss for agriculture farms to have emissions. It says that we already passed tipping points, but that North American soil alone are not enough to take away our current emissions from agricultural practices, which means it does not work for when nuclear war solves. But insofar as they access it, we access it too. And space call also, and you're certain that space call also, you're certain that space call also solves it. Now, also on the AGI stuff, above, none of the cards say that AGI will necessarily be evil, and we conceded that AI regulations are possible and can happen on the counterplan. We just said that regnegs are not the way to get there. So those regulations solve for bad AI, but not good AI.
Okay. 9:56.
Oh, was there a card on Regnant that you didn't send?
I didn't read it.
It might. Okay.
Oh, like on competition?
Yeah. I don't think so, but yeah, I think it was just re-highlight.
Yeah, it should.
Okay.
I think it's. Yeah, it's. Did you read the Chevron card in the 1NR?
Wait, what?
Did you read the Chevron card in the 1NR?
I think so.
The
Yeah.
last card of the doc?
No.
Okay.
it in timing? I think I like just heard.
I was in time.
Okay, I think it like just went. Okay. Can I have y'all's?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can add it to this. Okay. It's the first advantage, or the counterpoint of the first advantage. The DA will be like somewhere, like else.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
No cards, right?
I got it later. It'll be like yeah, just
Counterpoint
I'll
the
just go
advantage.
straight. Yeah, counterpoint the regular and the advantage. Everyone good?
Yeah.
I'll read it.
Counterpoint, not going for concede, probe, test the competition theory, reject the argument, not the team. Now the first advantage. 1 year fumbled the bag on future nuclear war. Don't rep out and prioritize guaranteed negative because they forgot to extend an impact to nuclear war. We solve space coal and warming, so there's only risk of EU defense. We control all of LASA's offense and access to greater internal link. Nuclear war is inevitable in the future. Ferry sites, multiple hotspots like Saudi Arabia, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, Ukraine, Iraq, Libya, etc. and finds that nuclear weapon stash is increasing and system failure through design flaws, human error, etc. can cause accidental launch at any time in the future, magnified by US-Russia relations. Nuclear war now is better than later. Turchin says a future nuclear war would involve doomsday weapons, cobalt bombs, gigaton bombs, laser, isotope fusion, EMP, tsunamis, asteroid deflection, etc., causing fast extinction. Try or die. Aesthetic of 100% risk of extinction destroys trillions of future lives and is irreversible, but a 99% risk of extinction is not certain, so you should err negative on any defense to their offense. You are certain that you are going extinct in the status quo via future nuclear war. They have also conceded that nuclear war is not existential right now, so there's only a risk that we have defense to EU, but war now is good. It destroys industrial society, which is dropped, and makes us hunter-gatherers, stopping a future existential nuclear war. Now, the 1 hour was a swing and a miss. It was a holy tagline extension and blippy as shit. They conceded 3 responses. 1, non-state actors. They can easily capture nuclear weapons in the future, which throws out their evidence. 2, Putin and other hotspots were all dropped and are capturing nukes in the future that will cause extinction. 3, their evidence is outdated. You seriously need to read our cards because they body slam theirs. They are tons of tensions that are happening in the future, and the 1 hour was also super blippy here and did not bundle on any of the stuff I said, so just strike it. Now, rebound stuff is wrong. 1, resources. Darnell says that nuclear war would destroy fossil fuels, metal, gas, concrete, fertilizer, and chemicals, which are necessary to sustain industrial society. 2, survivors. A nuclear war breaks down industry, manufacturing, trade, etc., which makes us hunter-gatherers. That's Beck said. It is not morally equivalent to extinction. We explicitly conceded Utah from the Condier, which means that you should only vote for the team that saves the most lives. We solve for the debt of 8 billion. It's irrelevant if we kill 7.5 billion because society living as hunter-gatherers is more preferable to society all just dying from future nuclear war. We never said that rebound was impossible. We just said that nuclear war prevented industrial civilization. We could live like we did in the 1000s, and that would be good. Now, concede no emerging tech, which takes out everything on space coal. There's no reason to colonize space because Oliver 1 and C evidence says that space colonization is good. It's about future tech, but this does not take out future nuclear war because our evidence cites things like super volcanoes, which will be used in a future nuclear war, that are external to tech. Concede defense to create goods, aliens, bioweapons, and everything else. It's irrelevant. AI, infinite pleasure, is not offense. Future nuclear war kills us all, which takes that out. And concede HI impossible. No author quals that didn't apply to Turkey, but he's citing a body of empirical studies and future developments, and also our fairest evidence to at sea has a doctorate. Now, I'm not sure what the 1 year is doing. They conceded every warrant for 1 nuclear war. It's not existential. 1, empirics. Over 2,000 devices have been detonated and none of close to decimating society. 2, particulates. Nuclear war would blockade by throwing particulates in the air, which reverses warming. That's McDonald. 3, islands. New Zealand, Australia, Solomon Islands, Iceland, and Vanuatu are self-sustaining and have enough resources to feed millions of survivors. Let's help her. No 2 air on this because the 1 hour did not say nuclear war causes extinction. This defense does not take out future nuclear war because things like super volcanoes would spread to islands. There's now the space coal stuff is not offense. 1, the counterpoint solves. I'll extend it. It passes Biden's bill, which they said causes space colonization. That means that we colonize space right now, and then it causes nuclear war via the AF, which solves for both of our offense. The perm fails. It links to the turn because it does the AF, preventing nuclear war. The counterpoint also solves the EU scenario. It sends us all to space, which stops extinction for their explicit judged instruction. It solves the first advantage. 2, they conceded it stopped. It's from 2016, and we have not colonized since. 3, our offense turns it drop. Nuclear war via EMPs and super volcanoes obviously spreads throughout the entire universe, including space, and kills them. 4, no impact. All the existential risks are 1 and 2 evidence sites are emerging tech, which we conceded defense to. Now the rebound. Now the AFSOL's warming is not unique offense. They conceded the nuclear war also solves warming, which means that even if they solve warming, there is not an impact differential between them and us because we also solve a day-science modeling and finds that nuclear war would reduce temperature by 8 Celsius by destroying industrial society. Space colonization does not solve warming because it still kills everyone on Earth, but we solve warming and by ending the root cause of emissions, which is better. Now the last thing was a blip about AGI. It's relevant because I conceded defense. Now the advantage proper. Trump collapses EU relations, hits America first policies, and unmitigated protectionist objects U.S. trade relations. 3 warrants the 1 year did not grapple with 1 tariffs. They're inevitable. Under Trump, he leverages 140.5% on China a week ago and refuses to negotiate with decking ally relations. They're an economic tool to leverage global power, which causes retaliation from other countries to NATO. He cuts out every single U.S. contribution, Ukrainian military aid. Their evidence is about his first term. And 3 European populism, far-right movements in Europe are emerging now, which makes it really unlikely for any deals. That's Al-Jum, which was in the 20 and dropped. It's really intuitive. The Af cannot overcome tariffs, lack of military aid, abandoning Ukraine, or foreign policy. EU also fails to resolve conflict because they're fragmented right now and do not take military action, which is also proposed to drop. Look, future nuclear war is inevitable, causes extinction. Try or die, flip snag, because they also forgot to extend an impact to nuclear war, which also takes out EU. Do you want to start talking?
No.
You can see a scenario in the Tunar. Like, what was the nuclear war scenario in the Tunar?
Future nuclear war.
Or like for the what's the link in the Tunar?
What do you mean what's
Like, what scenario did you conceive causing nuclear war?
like food insecurity trade?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Just the advantage. They shadow extend a lot of stuff on other pages, so I'm just gonna keep it on one spot, just making it clear. Oh, you good?
Yeah.
Corn? Wait, I'll say it.
Sir, friend
understand your bound, you know that social collapse is bad, and only the plan can solve its irreversible precludes infinite future potential of infinite future life by succumbing the entirety of humanity to a failed globe. Even a small risk mitigation to future tech must come first, because probability is a sole tiebreaker. I'm not spending any time on nuclear war is existential. Framing issue to Tunsi was explicit that it results in a social collapse as humanity can recover, and explicitly conceded the card in a Tunsi that says social collapse is morally equivalent to extinction, no takebacks. And this one Tunar is extremely new. Utah was not in the Tunsi, but you should strike it. But you should ask yourself, why is extinction worse under Utah? Ask yourself, what warrant has the Tunar given for why extinction outweighs our scenario is predicated off the Utah too, and the Tunar does not do enough explanation of irreversibility is a sole objective standard for closing any future opportunity for infinite resistance. Their offensive contingent on winning a spill claim. We cannot access if humanities are all doomed. Now, all of this is relevant because it also drops that the plan is key to stop nuclear war, and the campaign also links to nuclear war more because it's part means that humanity does not have enough globes to go for, because their scenario is that Spark results in a social collapse, which means that I don't know what they're on about with this campaign because they cannot solve any of this in the first place. Remember, you should ask yourself, how are we going to get to space if there's no society, no industrial science, no people to build rockets and get there in the first place? All this is new in the Tunar, and most of this extrapolation is new, so there's certainly new, that certainly justifies new Tour extrapolation too. Now, Sovereignty is a non-starter. Bring it here. One, you should strike it. They conceded one in Tunar, conceding that the one in the 1NC, the absolute trade means not get out of in the 2NC and the Tunar. Two, they spotted that other scenarios, that if there's no other scenarios like food insecurity and trade, which are name dropped in the block. If there's no app, there's no spark either, which means chart died. Three, the plan solves overwhelms, your evidence is terrible. It's not assumed the signal of conceding to a non-negotiable demand, which our evidence says, but there's still certainly try or die, so the risk cuts both ways regardless. Now, the future war scenario was just not dropped. One, space colonization turns it. That will be below. Two, the law said, quote, no future wars returns can be held up to prevent aggression, which is confirmed by decades of great power peace. That's the Emperor's here. Aft, Church has zero quals and cites no scenario for escalation. Aft and the Tunar. As to what country actually causes nuclear war and what country gets to escalate. The Tunar does not have any warrant, just says NSAs, but there's no explanation for what NSAs attack, why those wars goes existential, and what theories it will go. Now, they have no responding answers to Cheshire either. Deflate the impact. History confirms that emerging tech is overhyped. Takes decades to emerge with pacifying effects. The other factors like geography, power, and culture overwhelm. Now, her attention debate on Turchin is terrible. It says, a quote, all of these unconventional means of strategy nuclear war could become available somewhere in the 21st century and may cause or contribute to civilization collapse and even human extinction the same way I may decide to slap the law. I am not going to. Now, go to the campaign. Now, it's a space called proper debate now. Turn to both. So every single scenario will agree that passing the cut solves and allowing space law gets us off the rock. Tunar made a mistake, not concede the perm. Future nuclear war would never happen, even if it does. Church says, a quote, nuclear power plants, super volcanoes, EMPs, tsunamis, psychophiles, all of which cannot extend beyond Earth. The closer it gets is asteroid deflection, but the next line says, quote, from Earth. The Tunar is quote, from Earth, which means it's not go universal. And it also takes out the scenarios where nuclear war goes universal. And also, you should ask yourself, why is there volcanoes in every country? And even in every planet in nuclear war, there's no explanation. None of the cards substantiate this. And there's no warrant in the Tunar, so you strike it. Tunar said the perm fails because it prevents a nuclear war in the short term. That's irrelevant. Space solves current and future nuclear wars. And doing both guarantees you get off the rock. Don't check out space volcanoes destroy the universe. This is not true, and it's just Neve 25. Now, physics 101, super volcano eruption does not eject materials far enough to reach beyond the Earth's atmosphere, and it's only contained to the globe. It's impossible to get out of Earth, let alone other planets and universes. And none of the future war cards pricing a nuclear war outside of the Earth, which means that getting off the rock quickly it solves. Now, the Tunar also just dropped that space call is inevitable from global and private actors. Tunar does not have an answer to us. The scenario on the DA is just about domestically, Tuisi read a card saying that global actors will solve the space colonization, that global government incentives will always solve it in the future. The Tuisi and the Tunar spotted this, and the Tunar has no explanation. Now, independently, the explanation of the campaign in Tunar is just brand new. The Tuisi said the campaign prevents space colonization, and then the Tunar just doubled back on it, which means you should strike it in the first place. Now, oh yeah, independently, they also conceded the AI scenario and why it results in infinite value. Remember, the 1 year did not concede that AGI is not, they just conceded that AGI is impossible, and there are two cards saying that AGI creates infinite pleasure. Both of these are dropped. They turn on no warrant, and there's no reason why future use would prevent it, because they prevent in the first place, which means char die. There's infinite expected utility from AI because it allows immortality. It abolishes aging by allowing us to become transhumanist, which is all the rebate evidence, which is all dropped. I do not know how you're going to vote neg, because the counterpoint is illogical. They conceded that that social collapse is morally equivalent to extinction. There's no explainable scenario that does not conflict with space call. Yeah, just doesn't make sense.
Good debate.
go ahead, try it out.
No thanks.
You threw me off Neptune R. Just saw you walking by. Or, two.